As the gold medalist of Time and Space Company, Yu Chu accidentally tied himself to the cannon fodder system in order to save his boss's son, and was forced to start working as a cannon fodder female support. As the cannon fodder and school flower in the campus literature, Yu Chu tried hard to squeeze out 2 crocodile tears to prove that she had been heartbroken because she was just the sister of Zhuma School Grass. However, her heart was as cold as a fish that had been killed in RT Mart for 10 years, unable to stir up any waves. As the cannon fodder empress in the Tyrant's novel, Yu Chu worked hard to maintain his cunning and beautiful character, proving his unwavering loyalty to his beloved prince. But in the end, she not only accused people of plotting rebellion and harming the monarch, but also became the ruling queen. It's not that Yu Chu shattered the character design too badly, but rather that there is always someone's art style in every dimensional world like this, angry and beautiful male god. Give me tutoring, so that I won't think of any romantic tricks all day long. Yin Yu Jing Fen Tyrant. What's good about being a swordsman? If you want to do it, be above 10,000 people, become the lonely queen, and I will pass you a sword. So, Yu Chu began to run further and further on the path of releasing himself. Keywords of the novel. Quick wear. Pin Q. I am really a cannon fodder female supporting character with no pop-ups, wear it quickly. Bolt Q. I am really a cannon fodder female supporting character. Download the complete set of TXT, quickly wear. Bolt Q. I am really a cannon fodder female supporting character. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. The school boss's art style is wrong. 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The school boss's art style is wrong. 1. Did you hear that? Shen Ting from class 19, grade 3, is missing. His parents have both found the school now. I heard he didn't even take the college entrance examination. Shouldn't it be a psychological breakdown? Please, isn't it? Where in life is there no beautiful scenery? Did someone kidnap me? I don't know, people are already searching. Someone saw Shen Ting walking with Lin Yuchu in the end. Has anyone seen Lin Yuchu? I was in the same exam room as Lin Yuchu, and she didn't come for the exam either. They were like. The human world has evaporated. The above group chat messages, Yu Chu can already memorize them proficiently. The drizzling rain washed against the glass windows of convenience stores, and the street across from them was foggy, interweaving the entire world in a gray-white. The girl in the convenience store was sitting on a bar chair, with a fair face and a ponytail. She casually crossed her thin white legs, eating the steaming Kanto cuisine while gently swaying her shoe tips. The phone placed on the desktop is still frequently scrolling group chat messages on the screen. Yu Chu chewed the fish balls in his mouth and glanced at the time on his phone screen. June 8, 17.29. Just as Yu Chu swallowed the fish ball in her mouth, a bright white light burst out in front of her, causing her to involuntarily close her eyes. When Yu Chu opened her eyes again, she found herself standing on the edge of a wide road, with the scorching sun hanging high above her head. Yu Chu appeared here because her boss impulsively placed the crown prince of the Time and Space Company in a small world to experience life. But unfortunately, there was a bug in this small world halfway through, causing an infinite loop that trapped the crown prince in the plane. It also caused his soul fragments to scatter into other plane worlds along the time and space tunnel. Although her boss seems to look down on his son on weekdays, he is still an old man with a disdainful mouth and a heart full of wealth. As soon as this incident occurred, Yu Chu, who had won the title of Excellent Employee multiple times, was immediately asked to help collect the soul fragments of this crown prince. If there are too many outsiders in a plane, it can lead to the collapse of the small world. In order to prevent the newly restored small world from collapsing again, Time and Space Company finally deployed Yu Chu's consciousness, but her system has yet to arrive. So much so that when Yu Chu arrived for the first time, he finally determined the source of the soul fragment of the crown prince. Before he could do anything, he found that Shen could not hear him, and this plane collapsed without warning. If it weren't for all these years of carrying out the mission, she would have accumulated some strange things to be safe from danger. Yu Chu would have been a fallen man from the ends of the world like this crown prince. So when the plane was reshaped, Yu Chu immediately found Shenting, knocked him unconscious, and locked him in a small black room, hoping to avoid his disappearance. However, I don't know if it's because the bug on this plane hasn't been completely fixed yet, but Shenting still evaporated from the human world. And Yu Chu returned to the initial starting point. Xuan Q, she really knows how to Xuan Q. The Kanto-cooked food that Yu Chu had eaten before is not in her stomach at all now, and she is hungry again. Hungry people cannot think about life. At the roadside, Yu Chu casually went to a shop and ordered a bowl of rice noodles with red oil. During this time, a voice suddenly rang out in her mind. "Hello Bowsy, I am your cannon fodder system, Grey Rabbit, what system?" Yu Chu almost choked to death from the freshly swallowed noodles. The voice repeated patiently and gently, "The cannon fodder system." Yu Chu tried to clarify his thoughts and logic. "The above said they would send me a gold medal system. Bowsy, I am the system with the highest pass rate among task leaders in this session of Tongzi." Grey Rabbit's tone was cheerful and approachable. "You don't have to worry, the tasks I posted are all super simple. With your eyes open and closed, your task will be over soon." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. The school boss's art style is wrong too. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. The school boss's art style is wrong too. Yu Chu. Take the newcomers as cannon fodder, can we get the boxed lunch early? Yu Chu took a deep breath and suspected that she had been insulted, but she couldn't provide any evidence. She put down the chopsticks in her hand and discussed with a good temper, "Let's talk about it. Can we change the task? Or, can we change the system? Bowsy, there is no simpler task than making cannon fodder." Grey Rabbit paused for a moment, and considering your past work experience, in order to alleviate the abnormal impact of being an outsider on the small world, we have to let you do cannon fodder tasks to reduce your sense of presence, Grey Rabbit added, "otherwise, you may be repelled by the plane and forcibly sent back to the real world. Of course, your soul fragments are also likely to scatter into the time and space tunnel." Yu Chu. Is there anything shameful about her resume as a major villain? She is still the excellent employee of Time and Space Company every year. To put it simply, it's not that we can't kill her. Well, we can't kill her. Bowsy, have a pleasant cooperation. If there is a need, I will call you again. Yu Chu still had many questions to ask, but Grey Rabbit clearly felt that chatting with her more would affect his work efficiency. Soon, he decisively went offline. Yu Chu. What kind of system is this? Yu Chu felt even more disheartened. The only fortunate thing is that Grey Rabbit is indeed a dedicated system. Before going offline, I passed on the information of this plain instance to her. The original protagonist's name was Lin Yu Chu. He came from a wealthy family and ranked among the top in academic performance. He was the school flower of affiliated middle school, the rumored object of the male protagonist Xiao Zhe, and a powerful rival of the female protagonist Jiang Wan. Yu Chu's cannon fodder mission is mainly to drive the emotional or plot lines of the male and female protagonists in the small world. In other words, it means she has to run around in the protagonist's world. As a brick, it needs to be moved wherever it goes. This is the mission of being an excellent cannon fodder employee. Okay. This task mode is not too difficult, she will try her best to cooperate when the time comes. Yu Chu had eaten and drank enough, and was about to take a stroll home to pass the time. Today is the weekend. There are still 2 months left until the college entrance examination. I arrived earlier than before this time, and I don't know how well the technical department has repaired this plane. When Yu Chu took out his phone and was looking at the time, someone rushed past him like a gust of wind. She looked up and only vaguely saw a black shaky figure. Yu Chu instinctively took a few steps back. Immediately after, 4 or 5 people hurriedly chased the figure into the alley, accompanied by a few angry shouts. "Don't run away if you have his mother skills. Don't let me catch you." Yu Chu blinked and poked his head out to look inside. It's a dead end inside. That group of people quickly blocked the alley entrance. "Run. Run for me. Why didn't you run away?" The leading thug, wearing a white jersey and vest, with wine-red hair, picked up a brick from the ground and was eager to give it a try. "Let's call this Brick Brother for now." Yu Chu looked at the others, who were wearing various color palettes on their heads, including Huang Mao Gu, LV Mao Gu, Z Mao Gu. But none of them were normal. And the brother who was stuck in the alley, Yu Chu looks a bit familiar. Wearing a black T-shirt and black pants, she appears tall and thin, with particularly long legs. Black hair was scattered slightly in front of the forehead, with dark eyes and eyebrows. The face was clean, and the features looked so attractive that they had a visual aggressiveness. The expression on the face was full of impatience. As if the next second, he could retort with a harsh remark, "Let's all go up together, hurry up." Yu Chu recognized it, and this beautiful brother is Shenting. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. The School Boss's Art Style is Wrong 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. The School Boss's Art Style is Wrong 3. Brick Brother seems to have a disdain for Shenting's stinky face, so he caught his face and started writing articles. "Don't think that you have a pretty face, so you can easily flirt with someone else's girlfriend. You look like a little white face, please have a face." Shenting's gaze lightly swept over the group of color palettes present, his peach blossom eyes slightly raised, with a clear expression of arrogance. Just as Yu Chu was perking up his ears and preparing to hear what kind of harsh words Shenting would say, he heard him say, "Do you think my face looks good?" Yu Chu. "Ha! What script is this?" The Brick Brother immediately became angry and said, "Are you sick?" "Ah, I don't have it." Shenting inserted his hands into his pockets, his voice lazy and melodious, sounding particularly ungrateful and perfunctory. But his expression was particularly sincere and innocent. In his clear black eyes, there was a hint of real doubt. "Do you think I'm interested in your girlfriend when I look at my face all day?" A group of brothers. Pushy. Yu Chu couldn't resist it. Beautiful brother is truly beautiful. His confidence, courage are comparable to contemporary boutique daffodils. In a quiet atmosphere like a chicken, Yu Chu's laughter was particularly loud. The brothers surrounding Shenting immediately turned around upon hearing the sound, staring at Yu Chu with a ferocious expression, as if pulling her over to teach her a lesson together. "Hey, wait a minute." Seeing Huang Mao Brother receiving the signal from Ban Brick Brother's gaze, he walked towards him with a fierce momentum, and Yu Chu quickly shouted to stop. Yu Chu raised his phone and suggested, "I called the police. The nearest police station is only 3 minutes away from here by car, and it has been 2 minutes now. You still have 1 minute to run. Are you sure you won't run?" Slate Brick Brother was taken aback for a moment and walked over in a meteoric manner, raising his hand as if to attack Yu Chu. However, he didn't expect her to hold on to his wrist and intercept him in mid-air. Yu Chu looked at him without showing any weakness, even with a hint of coldness in his eyes, and curved his lips like a knife hidden in a smile. The little girl in front of Mingming has a fair and clean appearance, with black eyes as clean and transparent as a deer. She looks very gentle and obedient, without any aggression. Staring at him with such a gaze, Brick Brother actually felt a bit uncomfortable in his heart, realizing that he couldn't do anything about the person in front of him for the time being, and there happened to be a passerby nearby. Brick Brother lowered his head and stared at Yu Chu, warning fiercely, "Little girl, wait for me." Yu Chu let go of his hand and just hugged his phone, smiling. "Let's go." Brick Brother left with a group of people in a lively manner, leaving Shenting standing alone at the empty end of the alley. It seems that he didn't expect such an incident, and Shenting was also quite surprised. He walked out of the alley, stared at Yu Chu's face, and suddenly said, "Have I seen you before?" Yu Chu's heart pounded with a thud. She was knocked unconscious last time and taken away. How could Shenting possibly see her face? Moreover, the plain world has been reshaped, and he cannot have any memory. Yu Chu was not at all guilty. She even imitated Shenting's haughty tone and said calmly, "Ah," then continued, "I am the school belle of affiliated middle school. I have met you before, and it is truly unforgettable. Shenting. Having never heard such a narcissistic self-introduction before, Shen's gaze paused and he actually had some impressions of her. The rumored flower of affiliated middle school is not a pure goddess. Gentle and petty. Elegant and generous. How did she this shameless level is on par with him. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The school boss's art style is wrong for. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The school boss's art style is wrong for, oh. Shenting gently raised his eyebrows, with a faint expression on his face, accompanied by the narrow and slightly raised tail of his eyes, which inexplicably appeared somewhat seductive. Peers, right. Shenting took the initiative to extend his hand to her, with slender and beautiful fingers and even neatly trimmed nails. His tone was somewhat casual. "Let me introduce myself. I, Shenting, am the leader of the affiliated middle school. Nice to meet you. Yu Chu. She can't continue playing the play of the second illness. She gave up. Lin Yu Chu. Yu Chu shook hands with him briefly and was ready to find a chance to slip away. She can't take on Shen Xiaoba's play anymore. Wait a moment. Shenting quickly grabbed onto her hood. He was almost 1.8 meters tall, and at this moment, he was holding onto Yu Chu like holding a chick in his hand. Still with that cold and dragging tone, it doesn't seem like discussing at all. Please drink a bottle of water. If it weren't for Yu Chu listening carefully, he would have thought Shenting was asking her to treat him. Yu Chu smiled and said, "No need, right? Use." Shenting didn't give her a chance to refuse, and the remaining light at the end of his eyes swept over the group of brick brothers standing across the street without leaving a trace. He grabbed Yu Chu's hood and was about to walk forward. Before taking a few steps, Yu Chu raised his hand and gestured for Shenting Song to release her. "Don't drag me. I'll go by myself, okay?" Line. Shenting Song let go and raised his chin, looking very talkative. With great compassion, he said, "Then you go first." Yu Chu's reasonable suspicion now is that the reason why this prince will encounter difficulties is likely due to offending someone. This personality is indeed a bit lacking. You deserve it. After walking for about 10 minutes, Shenting took her into a convenience store. He habitually walked to the freezer and picked up a bottle of ice water. After picking it up, he turned around and saw Yu Chu, only to realize that he had someone behind him. "What are you drinking?" Shenting handed her the mineral water in his hand and said, "Is it something else?" At first glance, the straight man who couldn't find his girlfriend invited the girl to drink ice water. Yu Chu picked up a bottle of room-temperature water from the mineral water box next to the freezer and replied perfunctorily, "Thank you." Shenting. Shenting lowered his eyelashes, lowered his head and let out a light chuckle, without arguing with her. Coming out of the convenience store, Shenting kept lowering his head and pressing his phone. He walked to the roadside and turned to call her, "Lin Yu Chu, come over." Yu Chu walked over hesitantly. Shenting handed her phone, which was a commonly used taxi app without specifying the destination. Shen heard, "Fill in the address yourself, and I'll call a car to take you home." "Why did you call me a car?" Yu Chu didn't understand. Shen listened with a slow and leisurely sound, her peach blossom eyes half smiling, as if she understood the meaning behind her words. She nodded and spoke very humbly, "Do you insist on me giving you a ride? Cheng, you can say something." Yu Chu didn't fail to notice the people on the opposite street following them all the way, but he still had the urge to punch Shenting when he heard his mouth being cheap and deceitful. Yu Chu suppressed his temper, filled in the address, and stuffed his phone back into Shenting's hand. "Thank you," he said. Shenting smiled friendly and said, "No trouble." He thinks he did quite well. Yu Chu thought that she should leave Shenting here and be beaten to death. The original owner's home is in the Happy Garden. Along the way, Shenting sat in a position next to the back seat door, bowing her head to play with her phone, maintaining a considerable distance from her in the middle. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. The school boss's art style is wrong. 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. The school boss's art style is wrong. 5. Until the taxi stopped at the entrance of the residential area, Shenting turned his head and saw the big characters, Happiness Jun, outside. Yu Chu heard his almost imperceptible soft sneer, as if mocking. Immediately, his indifferent gaze shifted towards him. "Don't get off the car." Yu Chu shook his mind, and Shenting's eyes showed a hint of clarity. He casually said, "Oh. So you want to come home with me?" Yu Chu. Speaking of shamelessness, I'm afraid no one can compare to the previous brother. Thank you. Fearing that Shenting would say, "It's okay," again, Yu Chu didn't hesitate to push open the car door and walk towards the community, without even thinking of looking back to see if Shenting had left. "I guess God has arrived and I don't want to save him." Kuyuchu is not a god, she is a worker. Sigh, thinking that there were still 3 months left, and she occasionally had to work as cannon fodder for the male and female protagonists of Chi Yun, Yu Chu felt that the future was bleak. Ding! The cannon fodder mission is coming. Yu Chu thought this way, and Grey Rabbit suddenly went online to release a task. The female protagonist Jiang Wan is at the male protagonist Xiao Zhe's house. When you go to deliver something to the bamboo horse Xiao Zhe, you find that the person who came out to open the door is Jiang Wan. The childhood friendship is no longer the only one, you are just his sister Yu Chu. What is this task? I'm just his sister. She is an only child, thank you. Is there anything else to give away? She's empty-handed, what should she give as a gift? As a major villain, she only wants to give others a 3-piece set. Yu Chu had innumerable roast in his heart. He took out the key and planned to go home first. Lin Mu just pushed the door open from inside with a plate of hot dumplings in her hand. "Xiao Chu, have you come back? Just in time, bring this plate of freshly cooked dumplings to Xiaoze." Lin Mu smiled and handed Yu Chu the plate in her hand. "Aunt Xiao just talked to me on the phone and said that she had something to do with Uncle Xiao. She went back to her hometown. Nobody has been at home to take care of Xiao Zhe these days. Please take care of him." Yu Chu instinctively refused, "I won't go." Lin's mother saw Yu Chu's cold face and couldn't help but say, "You child, you've had a tantrum with Ozawa again. Didn't you grow up together since childhood? There's no such thing as overnight grudges. He asked us to take care of him, and it's only right for our family to take care of him. Alright, you can send this dumpling to Ozawa and explain any misunderstandings clearly. Ozawa doesn't like to play with children like you do." Lin's mother seems to be very reassured about Xiao Zhe's character and behavior, but instead she is picky about Yu Chu's various choices. Perhaps this is her biological mother. Lin's mother didn't say much and closed the door in front of Yu Chu. "Okay." Yu Chu held the plate of dumplings and reluctantly knocked on the door next door. "Who is it?" A soft and sticky female voice came from the room. After receiving a reply from inside, Yu Chu didn't continue knocking on the door and stood quietly outside for a while. The door was open from inside, revealing a beautiful-looking girl dressed in the school uniform of affiliated middle school, exuding a delicate and elegant demeanor. Yu Chu was forced to open his business and smiled, "I'm looking for Xiaozhe." Lin Xiaohua. Jiang Wan stared at Yu Chu for a moment, nodded slowly, and quickly waved his hand, saying, "I'm just sitting at the same table as Xiaozhe, nothing else." "Don't misunderstand." "I don't misunderstand." Yu Chu responded quite candidly. "After all, it has nothing to do with her. She is just a cannon fodder supporting actress. I didn't hear the system prompt that the task was completed. Perhaps she didn't act too well, so Yu Chu had to grit her teeth and keep working hard." Yu Chu asked, "Is he at home?" End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The school boss's art style is wrong. 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The school boss's art style is wrong. 6 at. Jiang Wan immediately made way for her entrance and took the initiative to say, "Xiaozhe just went to the restroom." "Oh." Yu Chu responded casually, not caring too much, but not showing too clearly, and could only continue to be a fake smiling girl. Yu Chu. Xiaozhe, who came out of the bathroom, was holding a white T-shirt that had been replaced, with juice stains on it. It was probably a small accident that had just happened. Seeing Yu Chu, Xiaozhe asked in confusion, "Why did you come over?" "My mom asked me to bring you some vinegar." Dumplings." Realizing a slip of the tongue, Yu Chu quickly changed his tongue and made the plate of dumplings in his hand more prominent at the front of his body. "It's like this." Xiaozhe took the plate from Yu Chu's hand and politely said, "Thank you for helping me, auntie." After seeing that Yu Chu agreed, there was no intention of leaving, and Xiaozhe was slightly taken aback. At this moment, the three people crowded in the foyer, creating a slightly awkward atmosphere. Yu Chu also wants to leave, but the problem is that her task has not been completed yet and she still needs to continue acting. Yu Chu could only ask, "Did I disturb you?" "Don't disturb me." Jiang Wan waved his hand again and said awkwardly, "I just don't know how to write some questions. Let me ask Xiaozhe." "I've already finished asking. If you have anything to do, I can go back first." Jiang Wan pretended to pick up the backpack on the sofa and was grabbed by Xiaozhe's arm. Xiaozhe said, "We don't have much to do, it's just that Aunt Lin asked Yu Chu to bring me something to eat. Aunt Lin is particularly skilled at making dumplings. Can you stay and try it?" Jiang Wan nodded vaguely. Yu Chu's gaze circled around them, but he didn't wait for the system's task completion prompt. "Wow, isn't this light bulb of hers obvious yet?" Yu Chu really wanted to squeeze out 2 tears to prove that she had really been heartbroken. However, her heart was as cold as a fish that had been killed at RT Mart for 10 years, unable to withstand any waves, only pure and speechless. Xuan Q, really Xuan Q. Seeing that Yu Chu was somewhat absent-minded, Xiaozhe did not hesitate to have Jiang Wan present and asked her, "Did you argue with Aunt Lin again? Don't you want to go back?" Since Xiaozhe had found a perfect excuse for her, Yu Chu naturally accepted it and responded lightly, Xiaozhe asked, "Do you want me to help you plead with Aunt Lin?" "No need." After Yu Chu quickly refused, he found the atmosphere even more awkward. Looking at the large LCD screen and game controller in the living room, Yu Chu gritted his head and said, "I want to play a game." Xiaozhe. Having been with Yu Chu for so long, Xiaozhe has no idea when Yu Chu became interested in playing games. Yu Chu continued, "Just borrow the game disc I gave you before playing. Is that okay?" "Sure." Xiaozhe nodded blankly and walked over to help Yu Chu turn on both the LCD TV screen and game console. Taking advantage of the gap in playing games, Yu Chu worked hard to think about how she could be a good match and prove that the true love between the male and female leads is burning brightly, with stronger emotions than gold, and unwavering determination. "I didn't think it out, but she accidentally cleared the game. It's not interesting. It's really boring. Why can't they be buried together? She can also give them 2 double coffins as wedding gifts. Yu Chu, who couldn't adapt to the character for a while, decided to temporarily ruin it. Yu Chu put down the game controller, stood up, and said to Xiao Zhe and Jiang Wan sitting opposite each other eating dumplings in the restaurant, "I'll go back first." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The school boss's art style is wrong. 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The school boss's art style is wrong. 7. Okay. Xiao Zhe stared at the game clearance display on the LCD screen of the TV, seemingly lost in thought and didn't react. Seeing that Yu Chu had already walked to the door, Xiao Zhe finally regained his senses and stood up to see her off. However, Yu Chu left so decisively that Xiao Zhe didn't even have time to ask her a few more questions. Xiao Zhe returned to the dining table and found Jiang Wan somewhat absent-minded. He couldn't help but ask, "What are you fooling around with?" "Sorry." Jiang Wan hesitated as he held the chopsticks in his hand and asked with a flickering gaze, "Are you very familiar with Lin Yuchu?" Xiao Zhe was eating and said nonchalantly, "Didn't we live across the street? We've known each other since we were young, and we're quite familiar with each other. She's just like my younger sister." Jiang Wan suddenly fell silent. Thinking that Xiao Zhe's attention had been focused on Yu Chu just now, she felt a sense of unease in her heart, as if she had been in a daze, with impulsiveness dominating her rationality. Jiang Wan said incoherently, "I suddenly remembered that I have something else to do. I have to go home first." "What's up with you?" Xiao Zhe was completely confused. "There's just something going on." After speaking, Jiang Wan didn't wait for Xiao Zhe to react and had already opened the door and ran out. Xiao Zhe was a bit annoyed, but couldn't help but become more concerned about Jiang Wan's reaction in his heart, realizing that he was becoming more and more concerned about him. His feelings for Jiang Wan seemed to be more than just ordinary classmates. After hesitating for a while, Xiao Zhe picked up the key and chased after him. On the other hand, as soon as Yu Chu entered the doorstep, he heard the gray rabbit's prompt, "Task completed, congratulations." "Congratulations, fart." A cold voice echoed in his head, almost startling Yu Chu into having a heart attack. Yu Chu didn't understand. She spent half a day at Xiao Zhe's house, but she didn't complete the task. She left and the task was completed. Isn't this sick? Yu Chu really wanted to explore the theory of gray rabbit, but she tried to call it gray rabbit several times, but Wu Tongzi responded. Yu Chu. Are all gold medal systems so busy? Okay. In order to reduce the sense of rejection towards her, Yu Chu could understand the reason for asking her to do cannon fodder missions in the small world, but what happened on Xiao Zhe's side was not actually her main task. Yu Chu took out his phone and first found a friend named Wu Momo to inquire about Shenting's news. She was also the good friend of the original owner. Xiao Zhe and Jiang Wan are in Class 1, the original owner is in Class 2, Shenting is in Class 19, and Wu Momo happens to be in Class 19 as well. Their school's top classes are all on lower floors, and up there are regular classes, so it's often Wu Momo who comes to find Lin Yuchu. Lin Yuchu doesn't know much about going up, and she and Shenting have never had any interaction. Both of us are just living in rumors on the attached middle school forum. Wu Momo roughly told Yu Chu about Shenting's situation, and he knew everything without hesitation. After speaking, Wu Momo sent another message. Wu Momo. Chu, why did you suddenly inquire about Shenting? You probably don't like him, do you? Yu Chu. Adolescent children who don't study hard are so sensitive. Before Yu Chu could reply, Wu Momo continued to send a message. Wu Momo. I know what he lacks. If you like him, you must fall in love with him. Yu Chu. What is missing? Wu Momo. Lack of someone to take him to study hard. Wu Momo. So you all work hard together, make progress every day, and strive to get into the same university. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The school boss's art style is wrong. 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The school boss's art style is wrong. 8. You chew. She just wanted to say that these sisters don't have a proper mindset. It turns out they are so full of positive energy. She has a narrow vision. Yu Chu was a bit overwhelmed with tears and laughter, so he continued to ask. Yu Chu. Do you know when Shinting usually goes to school? Wu Momo. When it's time to start early reading, he always comes by foot. Chu Chu, what do you want to do? Yu Chu. I want to give him a Ben 53/smile, Wu Momo. After inquiring about Shinting's basic situation, Yu Chu closed the chat dialog box. On Monday when he was going to school, Yu Chu specifically waited at the staircase near class 19, waiting for a rabbit. Until the morning reading bell rang, Yu Chu didn't even see the shadow of Shinting. I guess Shinting went up the stairs on the other side and was quite rebellious. Yu Chu had to wait until the break and go upstairs to class 19 on his own. The original owner has a considerable reputation at affiliated middle school, and her face alone is her ID card. Her first love phase spread as soon as she entered the school. As soon as Yu Chu arrived, many people recognized her. That's Lin Xiaohua, isn't it? It's her. What did she come up for? I haven't seen any top students like to run upstairs. She seems to be in class 19. Is Wu Momo in class 19? She should be looking for her best friend, right? There was a murmur in the corridor. Yu Chu stopped at the back door of class 19, and the boy sitting in the back row quickly stood up and asked politely, "Are you looking for Wu Momo? Do you want me to help you call her?" The boy said, turned around and looked around the class. He didn't see anyone in Wu Momo's position and kindly told her, "She seems to have gone out, why don't you wait?" "No need." Yu Chu smiled gently and then said, "Could you please help me call Shinting from your class?" "Thank you." The boy's expression seemed to petrify in an instant, and he forced out a smile. Why don't you go in and call him yourself?" Immediately, the boy didn't look at Yu Chu's reaction and sat back in his seat with a swoop, like a clock, as if an old monk had fallen asleep. All the noisy sounds around him couldn't disturb him. Yu Chu saw him pull through the adjacent test paper and fill in the blank with options A, B, C, D without any thought pauses, flowing like a skilled answering machine. Yu Chu. Perhaps she can now understand what Wu Momo's words mean. Sorry to bother others with their business, Yu Chu's gaze wandered around class 19 and settled on the table next to the wall in the last row. Shinting was sleeping on the table, his face buried in his arms, revealing only the soft back of his head with black hair and a section of his neck that appeared particularly white in the sunlight. Class is over, and the people in class 19 are fighting and making noise. Unfortunately, there aren't many people around him making noise, as if a vacuum isolation zone has formed. Yu Chu walked through the aisle in the back row, ignoring the gaze around him, and whispered to him, "Shinting." Shinting remained completely silent, as if he had fallen asleep. It's also okay. Yu Chu didn't have to wake him up. She simply placed the paper bag in her hand under Shinting's desk and quickly went downstairs to return to class before the class bell rang. Class 19. A sudden and piercing class bell rang, and the surroundings gradually returned to silence. After a long time, Shinting's back, which was lying on the ground, moved. He propped up his profile and slowly lifted his head, with a lingering sense of confusion in his eyes. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. The school boss's art style is wrong. 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. The school boss's art style is wrong. 9. The long leg under the table stretched out, and I didn't know what it had kicked down. The object next to it fell to the ground, making a loud clatter. Shenting furrowed his brows and turned his head to look aside. He saw a cowhide paper bag next to him, inside which several books with blue and purple covers were poured out. At this moment, the exercise books slipped onto the ground, and the classmates sitting around Shenting were particularly frightened when they saw Shandalao reaching out to retrieve those few books. A term of school leader, beginning to love learning, did God open his eyes? Or are they blind? Shenting. Shentingang picked up those exercise books and casually flipped through a few pages. The English teacher standing on the podium suddenly called his name. Can you tell me the answer to this question? Select C. Shenting didn't lift his head, frowned slightly, then flipped through the exercise book in his hand, while pondering in his heart, which fool was sending him this kind of thing? Are you sick? The English teacher patted the blackboard heavily, causing Shenting to lift his head. The English teacher suppressed the bulging veins on his forehead and repeatedly emphasized, this question is a correction. Correction. It's not a multiple-choice question. Choose C. What is choosing C? I called you up to correct your mistake, do you understand? There was a faint sound of gasping in the class, as if holding back a smile. If it weren't for the fact that the person being scolded by the teacher was this big shot, the whole class would have burst into laughter in such a dramatic scene. Shenting was not embarrassed either. He just stood there, squinted his eyes slightly, and looked at a long string of English paragraphs on the projection screen. Forget it, you. Just as the English teacher gave up on himself and prepared to let Shenting sit down, he heard a rare and common answer. Although cannot be used with but. The English teacher's face changed brilliantly in just a few seconds. She waved her hand and said, "You sit down." Shenting sat down and picked up the bag under the table, only to find a long gift box inside, like a necklace. Shenting is opening the gift box. His front desk was also his younger brother. Song Qinwen turned around and whispered to him, "Brother Shen, do you know that question just now?" Shenting replied, "I don't know." Song Qinwen asked again, "Did you remember what the teacher said before?" Shenting then lifted his head again and looked at Song Qinwen. Song Qinwen couldn't resist such a gaze. Just as he was about to stop prying, he turned around and retreated to his position. Shenting threw the 5 books on the table to him and impatiently said, "I just stumbled upon them. If you like them, I'll give them to you." Song Qinwen quickly grabbed the exercise book that had been smashed with a heavy head and face, flipped it open casually. "Is this all white?" Dare to say that Shingu was just a blind cat who ran into a dead mouse. Have you had bad luck? Song Qinwen is not competitive. What is pure is that if he gets the last place in the school, his father will have to deduct all his pocket money. Unfortunately, he is the second to last. And Shenting happened to be the last one. For the sake of his pocket money, Song Qinwen had to risk his life to inquire and care about Shandalao's learning situation. Now, Song Qinwen doesn't think these exercise books were bought by Shenting himself. Based on the gossip he heard during the break just now, Song Qinwen took the initiative to return the book May 3rd to its original owner and joked, "I won't be pleased with what Lin Xiaohua gave you. Brother Shen, keep it, it's all a gesture of goodwill." Shenting. Lin Yuchu. Shenting looked at the silver necklace in the gift box and his left eyelid twitched a few times. She didn't have a crush on him, did she? I secretly fell in love with him and pretended not to know him at first. Is this a common problem among good students? Everyone loves to dress up. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. The school boss's art style is wrong. 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. The school boss's art style is wrong. 10. Shenting took the exercise book back from Song Qinwen's hand and neatly stuffed it into the drawer, along with the others. Not wanting to attract too much attention, Shenting didn't go to find Yu Chu during break time and waited until noon to finish school. Even if the top students in Class 2 are indifferent to things outside the window and only focus on reading books of sages, they still have some knowledge of Shen Xiaoba. Because they are more concerned about grades, the last one is just as eye-catching as the top one in the whole school. If it weren't for Shenting's poor grades, with his face, he would have been able to compete with Xiao Zhe for the title of Associate High School Draft. However, Shenting is not interested in this matter. In contrast, the reputation of the school bully can make him sleep more quietly and steadily. He quite likes it. Shenting. The girl from Class 2, who was about to leave the back door, recognized him with a look of shock and fear. Her face turned red and she cautiously said, "Who are you looking for?" "Lin Yuchu." Shenting, with one hand inserted into his school pants pocket and a straight figure, scanned the scattered figures in Class 2 classroom but couldn't find Yu Chu at a glance. "Is she there?" "I haven't heard of any connection between Lin Xiaohua and Shen Xiaoba, but Shenting shouldn't have come to trouble Yu Chu." After hesitating for a while, the girl spoke up and said, "Yu Chu has gone to the cafeteria." "Thank you." After receiving a reply, Shenting didn't waste any more time here and turned around and walked downstairs towards the direction of the cafeteria. The girl who stayed behind had a dull expression on her face. Did she hear Shen Xiaoba say, "Thank you," just now? Shen, who is rumored to have a disagreement and can slap people's heads with bricks, is actually quite polite. It doesn't seem like it's as fierce as imagined. Contacting Shenting to find Lin Yuchu was both a school bully and a school flower. The girl immediately brainstormed a youth campus essay worth tens of thousands of words. If they really become a couple in the future, she will definitely be the first batch of top fans. Wu Momo had something to attend to and went to the club. When Yu Chu went to the cafeteria to eat, he saw Xiao Zhe and Jiang Wan queuing together. Without the release of cannon fodder missions, Yu Chu would definitely not rush to become a tool man, so it's not her business. She just ignored it and didn't even want to shout. Yu Chu found a corner of the cafeteria and had lunch quietly. Suddenly, a shadow cast in front of her, enveloping the light in front of her. Yu Chu raised his head and saw Shenting sitting down with a plate. I think someone told him that she went to class 19 during break time. Chat. Shenting doesn't seem to be here for dinner, but rather a bit of a troublemaker. But Shenting became a bit careless and accustomed to it. His tone seemed to have been like this all along, and he couldn't tell how much emotional fluctuations he had. Yu Chu raised a smile and asked, "What are we talking about?" The girl in front of her is wearing a clean and white shirt and school uniform, with a high ponytail and a smooth and full forehead. Her smile is shallow, but it seems like a pear blossom blooming in spring, with a sweet and innocent aura. Shenting was not deceived by her innocent appearance. She lightly tapped her fingertips on the table and asked directly, "What do you mean by giving those things?" Yu Chu blinked and said, "I want you to study hard." "Is that right?" Shenting also smiled. Shenting turned his head and supported his side face with one hand. His delicate eyebrows and eyes were lowered, and his eyes were pure black. The sunlight from the top window sprinkled like a handful of broken gold, and his painted eyes were like stars, looking like a painting. "I thought you wanted to fuck me." End of this chapter.